Hello and welcome to today's episode. I am your host, The Irrelevant Nerd. Today is going to be a short episode. We're going to be discussing whether or not James Gunn's DCU movie universe is going to work. Now, I am of the opinion that it will not, and I don't think at any point it ever will. First up, we have Superman, which in my last video, I had kind of talked about how divided the internet already is on this film due to their love of like Henry Cavill's Superman or their dislike of James Gunn, which I can understand both, but having the crowd kind of split 50-50 before your movie even comes out is not a fantastic way to start your universe, especially when like a certain percentage of those people aren't just happy, they're like actively hoping that you will fail. So if Superman comes out and is anything less than a mega success in the box office, critic reviews, financial reviews, I actually don't think that the DCU ever fully gets launched. But let's say it does. Let's say Superman comes out, makes $1.5 billion, 95% Rotten Tomatoes score, whatever they consider successful at the studio. The problem that you immediately run into with the DCU that you're gonna find are problems that are currently starting to creep into the MCU. One of the big problems with the MCU after Avengers Endgame was the output of projects went up exponentially. There was an increase in movies as well as the addition of the TV shows. Now, initially, there were a lot of people that were very excited for these TV shows and thought that they would be a great way to kind of flesh out and expand on some of these lesser known characters or characters who maybe didn't get the proper amount of screen time in the movies that they were in. But what we've found is that these movies that have basically requirements to watch some of these shows to fully understand what's going on, a lot of people have checked out, and it's not traditionally worked super well for Marvel so far. And when you look at the Marvel Studios versus DC Studios, Marvel Studios very clearly has had a much better run of making consistently successful films. Now, DC certainly has them for sure. You have the Christian Bale Batman movies that Nolan wrote and directed, and so, it's not impossible for these characters to make money, but you're already kind of setting yourself up on a foundation to where, that was one of the first things James Gunn said, is that the story is going to be told in movies, TV shows, both live action and animated, comic books, and video games. And so the chances that you're going to miss out on Easter eggs or potentially even important information increases because this entire universe is already smushed together from the very beginning. It's not established and then fleshed out as the MCU was. Now, there is an argument to say that that might work better overall for the story, and I do think that's true, but I think that asking people to spread themselves into 4 different mediums of entertainment to enjoy your movie universe is not really the best way to get started. And then even beyond that, you already have other DC projects potentially mucking up what would be a combined DC universe, mainly Matt Reeves' Batman movie. Now, if you loved it, if you hated it, doesn't matter. It was a financially successful movie that they have planned a sequel to, which has now been delayed 3-4 times, and will be 27, 28, I think is when they're predicting the next one will come out. So pretty wide margin in between those films. But point being is it does have a dedicated fan base. It does establish a very young Batman with an actor who could play him for years going forward. But they've already said that the Matt Reeves Batman movies will not exist in the continuity of the DCU. They will be what's known as like Elseworlds stories. Now, I do think that's fun, but over the past year or so, I think that you can really see that James Gunn does not want his DC movies having to share the spotlight with other DC projects, and kind of based off of just the initial trailers of the Superman movie as well as Creature Commandos, Robert Pattinson's Batman doesn't necessarily fit super well into that world, because the world, like the Gotham they already have established for his movie, is another one much like Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, where it's very grounded, kind of flirts with the lines between reality and fantasy, and to make it to be like, oh, I could actually see how this would happen in real life. And so I think that running two different Batman properties is unwise, because it will just be the comparison game from both sides of which Batman movie was better and which actor was better, and it starts to create just more rifts amongst the fans. So what I do think is most likely going to happen if James Gunn's Superman movie is successful is that Matt Reeves' The Batman 2 will be canceled. I don't think it'll be reworked to come into the DCU. I think they will cast an entirely different Batman for that universe. Now, if the new Superman movie comes out and flops, I think there's a chance that Warner Brothers will pivot back to the more grounded and gritty world of the Batman. So it's not really a great way to be starting your universe of already looking at two different paths you can go down, and it's not based off the story or how fans really respond to it. It's all just based off of which is more financially successful, which from a business's perspective, that's fine. From a fan's perspective, that means we lose. They're going to just continue to make these movies that only some people are happy with because they make them enough money to justify making the next film. And I think now what people are kind of seeing online is that the internet really has kind of turned against James Gunn. He was well loved for what he had done with Guardians of the Galaxy for very obvious reasons, but his, tweets that got him fired from Disney, and then, he eventually got rehired at Disney, and his nepotism is very obvious when he started this new DCU. It's not even a hard reboot. It's like a 95% reboot with 5% trickle over, because you still have Peacemaker Season 2 coming out, and Peacemaker, they haven't really explained how. He is going to be moved into this new universe with, I believe, Blue Beetle as well, and Amanda Waller. And so the fans that are unhappy that you're moving on are looking at these actors that are still in your projects and being like, hey, why can't Henry Cavill be in? Hey, why can't Ben Affleck be in? Hey, why can't Gal Gadot be in? And there really is no explanation other than just James Gunn didn't want to, and he wasn't involved with those films, so he ended up not pulling those actors and characters in. But you have Peacemaker, a show that he makes that stars his wife, is getting a season 2. And then the example of like Maxwell Lord being played by his brother, which Sean Gunn isn't a bad actor or anything like that. I just don't think he's necessarily the best fit for that character. And there's a very obvious reason that he gets that job, same as James Gunn's wife getting her acting role in Peacemaker Season 1 is being continued into Peacemaker Season 2, and he's already stated that he does have plans for those characters further in the DCU. So when we take a step back and we look at the whole thing as just one giant picture, I think the picture is a mess. And I think that a lot of these ingredients do spell disaster for the DCU, unfortunately. I would love for it to work. I love DC Comics. Batman is easily my favorite comic book character of all time. Joker is maybe the best comic book villain of all time. You have Lex Luthor up there. You have all of these amazing characters that you could use. They just haven't chosen to, and it doesn't really seem like they're going to going forward, which I think has been evidenced by the very confusing launch of the DCU being a TV show, the Creature Commandos, which James Gunn did take the Guardians of the Galaxy and take a bunch of nothing characters and bring them into these well-beloved stars, and I get that, but that doesn't mean that that's going to happen every time. And it was a well-reviewed show, but Creature Commandos did not permeate into the nerdy zeitgeist at all. None of my friends have seen it outside of me, and I've only seen it just because I'm a big DC fan. And so it makes it hard to get excited for these projects when it seems like they lack a clear and concise vision going forward, as well as not choosing the best characters to launch your universe. DC is very lucky in terms of having the Holy Trinity in Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, which I understand that they just did some movies with them not that long ago, but they are your most popular and bankable characters for a reason, not Creature Commandos or not The Authority, which is another movie that James Gunn has announced, which has already been delayed, which is not a great sign. Same with, I believe they were going to do, I think it was Sergeant Rock with Colin Farrell, who was the Penguin in the Batman, so that makes me think there's another indicator that they're not going to merge those universes together at all, and it's not in the plan. It's going to be one or the other based off how ticket sales goes. But you look at Sergeant Rock, it was announced, they have an actor announced, and then I believe it was within like 4 to 5 weeks, project was delayed indefinitely, potentially canceled. And so they're already announcing movies that have been canceled, and their first major movie isn't even out yet. So I don't know, trying to read the tea leaves, it does not seem like it will be a very successful endeavor as much as I would like it to. I think they're just going about it the wrong way. But if you disagree, I would love to hear why you think that it's going to work. I would love to hear what you're excited about for the projects that are coming up. I know that there are like several that have been officially announced, like Superman, Supergirl. I believe there was a I believe there was a Swamp Thing project as well as a Clayface project, the Authority movie that I mentioned, and then the Batman movie, Batman the Brave and the Bold, which will star Damian Wayne as Robin, which I actually do think that's cool, and I don't think that Robin has gotten enough love in any of the live-action Batman movies, so that would be cool to see, if it happens, but I don't know. So let me know down below if you think that this is going to work, if you think there are some things that I'm maybe missing to point towards the success. But to me, right now, it unfortunately all kind of points towards failure.